A big game, not because the teams are good, but actually because the teams are horrible. The Denver Broncos 0-3 against the Chicago Bears 0-3. And Rob, they are both sitting on historically bad marks. Denver, of course, just gave up 70 points. And honestly, we know could have tied the record for points allowed if Miami had just kicked that field goal and they could have scored 73.
Right, but they were being nice.
They were being
Classy.
nice, exactly. And Chicago has lost its last 13 games. So both of these teams are horrible. Knowing how bad these teams are, Rob, they might end up in a tie.
It is pretty bad.
Oh, my gosh. But anyway, here's where I want to go. Now, there is a lot of talk, and has been a lot of talk, that Sean Payton will ultimately use Russell Wilson as his scapegoat. Right? We've heard him talk about Russ has to stop kissing babies and being a politician and all of that stuff, right? And The Athletic did a story recently after their 0-3 start. And an anonymous NFL executive went this far, Rob. Here's what he said. I believe Russell Wilson will have to play phenomenal to avoid getting benched. The way Sean Payton has talked about Wilson, I would look for it after the Kansas City game when they have a 10-day break, so going into their bye. The best move for them could be to look at the draft. But here's the thing. Payton could not stomach people thinking he is bad. If he were to tank, everyone will have to know, just like after the Washington game. So if he's basically saying if you bench Russ, it's like you're saying we're tanking, we're moving on from Russ, whatever. Here's what I would say, Rob. And first, in fairness, Diana Rossini, reporter for NFL, does a good job for ESPN covering the NFL. She has said, reportedly, just earlier this week, I think, that the relationship between Peyton and Russell Wilson is going well. So
he's not playing. He's not playing like he played last year.
Well, that's where I was going to go, Rob. Russell Wilson is top 10 in yards per game, passing yards, top 10 in yards per attempt, one of only 7 quarterbacks to throw 6 or more touchdowns this season. He's only got 2 interceptions. He's top 10 in passer rating, which his passer rating is the exact same as Patrick Mahomes, 99.5. So you're right. Russell Wilson has not been the problem. Now, their offense definitely needs to score more points, and you can attribute some of that to Russ. But he's played fine. He's played much better. He hasn't been spectacular. He hasn't been,
but he's not the reason
Seattle
that
Russ.
they're
Absolutely. Here's what I want to throw at you, Rob. With what we've seen with the 0-3 start, the 70 points, the decline of the Denver Broncos defense from top 10 the past 2 years to dead last right now. And if you want to say what was the 70 points that made, well, yeah, they gave up 70. They deserve to be last. But even if you take that out, they were bottom 10. So, Rob, with all of that happening, and that's not even to mention Sean Payton rubbing people the wrong way with what he said about Nat Hackett and all of that, right? We may be past the point of Sean Payton being able to scapegoat Russell Wilson. Sean has been so bad himself, and Russ has been solid. That do you think now if Russ plummets and goes back to what he was doing last year, that's one thing. But assuming he continues to play pretty well, are you with me that it ain't no scapegoating Russell Wilson because you've been worse than Russell Wilson?
I agree. I don't even know how that could even be in the conversation at this point. For real. Russell Wilson would have to play awful against the Bears, Chris, with 3 picks, a pick 6, or, something of that ilk where it's just disgusting where you look at it and go, man, this guy, he can't play. And I know one game and he's played pretty well so far, but I would need something like that to even have that conversation. I don't think he's the reason that they're in the situation that they're in. We get it. Last year he was bad. He's not the reason. When you come off a 70-point game.
Look, the players obviously get some of that blame, but Rob,
I know,
we're looking at the coach.
But you have to, Chris, because this is the only thing. If they pitched a shutout in the first 3 games, we would say, Sean Payton, look at what he's done.
Right.
You would give the coach credit.
Even though they were a good defensive team.
Right. You would still give him credit. So you can't I get the players play, but we do give coaches credit when things go right. So coaches can get blamed when they don't go right, because they will get credit if it's good, Chris. They will.
Oh, yeah, and he especially would have got credit. Rob, there's no doubt. When you give up 70 points, whether the players have quit on him or not, they certainly, and I think it was Greg Jennings, they definitely quit in that game, Rob.
Right. Greg was they quit, right,
yes,
in that game,
sure. 70 points?
In pro football, Chris, this ain't Pop Warner or you play in some school where the kids are twice as big and you got a small team,
exactly.
Something like that. This is
it's
NFL
not Division
teams.
1 against Division 2
or 3 or something like that. Right.
I mean, come on. So, Sean Payton, I just don't think, Rob, that he could get away right now. Now, again, like you said, if Wilson goes in the tank and just is horrible, that's another story.
Bad game or two, right.
But I don't think people would buy it. I really don't, because as good as Sean Payton has been, right? He's been a good coach. Hasn't Russell Wilson been essentially that good of a player? Right? I mean, when he left Seattle, he got his Super Bowl just like Sean has. He's been to another Super Bowl. And he was viewed before he left or when he left Seattle as a Hall of Famer.
They thought he was going to win a championship, Chris, with the defense. Add Russell Wilson, right? I mean, yes.
So, I mean, you're talking about, like, and I know Russ, some people don't like him. They think he's corny. They think he's phony, all that. But a lot of people feel the same things about Sean Payton. So my thing is, I think before the season, when we didn't know if Russ would play well and Sean had not had these gaffes and this lack of success, he probably was in a position where he may have been able to scapegoat Russ.
He was in a position, no doubt, because he's the new hire. Russ was coming off the bad year. You know what I mean? Where a lot of people soured on him, Chris. So, Sean Payton had that in his back pocket. I don't think he has it anymore.
No, not right now. I mean, they better go on a nice little tear for him to get that. And for them to go on the tear, though, Russell Wilson's going to have to play pretty well. And so, I'm with you. I just think he doesn't have that card in his back pocket right now. He is surrendered that card because he's been so bad. Rob, how do you see this game? I think Denver's going to win. I think Denver absolutely has to win, Rob.
I think they win and win big. I agree. Because you have to bounce back from the embarrassment. There's a lot of good football players on that team. I'm sorry. And they're to be embarrassed in that nature, in that fashion, Chris, it's a redemption game. They got to get their football program righted.
Right.
And the Bears are the General Hospital of the NFL, Chris. When you play them, you get well.
No doubt about that. And Rob, they have to be able to look that 70 points is going to be with them. And they'll never forget that they gave up 70 points in a freaking NFL game. But for the rest of this year, they've got to get to a point. And maybe I'm overstating. I don't want to overstate, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say. They got to get to a point, Rob, where they can look themselves in the mirror again. I'm saying that somewhat figuratively.
No, right. And that's what I'm saying.
You got to feel, if this is what you do, you got to feel like at the bottom of the barrel that you gave up 70 points in a game. So you have to go out there and spank the Chicago Bears. Rob, I think I've told you, my wife and I are watching The Wire. And we're in this season 4. We just finished it. And there's this one kid who's out on the block, out on the corner selling drugs, but he really ain't about that life. His mom kind of pushed him out there, and his dad was a soldier like that. And, he rolled up on the little kid who had done him wrong, and the little kid back-talked him, and he didn't do nothing about it. And his friend saw it and all that. And so the next day he went, and in front of his friend that saw him back down to this little kid, he started loud talking somebody he knew he could beat.
Right.
And he did it obviously to make himself feel better in front of his boy. And that's what the Broncos need to do. They need to win, Rob, about 35 to 37 to 7 or something like that.
No, I get it. It's got to be a beatdown where you reestablish that we're a good team, we have a good coach, we have a good quarterback, and our defense is better.
Even if only to yourself, right? Other teams might still look at you funny, but to yourself at least you can say, all right, we that was a bad day. We put that behind us. Because Rob, after the Bears, they win that game. They're 1-3, and I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't remember. I don't think you picked them either. If I remember,
not the
correctly.
Bears.
No, the Broncos.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay, but after the Bears, they got the Jets. That should be a second victory. So if they can go 2-3, now they got the Chiefs after that. 2 out of the next 3 weeks after that, actually. So it could, those are going to be, and then they got the Bills. They got some tough sledding ahead of them.
Right? No, they do. But
you at least got to beat the Bears and the Jets.
But here's the thing: if you don't beat the Bears, my God, look at where you are. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Absolutely.
Your season could be annihilated.
Yep. So I'm with you. They're going to beat up on the Bears, and you wonder at some point, what are the Bears going to do? I guess you don't have to change Justin Fields right now, because at some point, Rob, they're going to say, you know what? We want Caleb. That's what they're going to say.
No, if it gets to that point, why wouldn't you?
Right. They're going to say that. And I think they can still trade Justin Fields, because I think somebody will feel like, okay, you're not going to get a ton for him. But, he's athletic. He can run, obviously. We don't like the way Chicago was using him. Kind of like Trey Lance, right? He went to Dallas. I think you'll be able to get something, a pick or something for Justin Fields. So, yeah, I think Chicago's this Sunday might be the determiner for them. That, okay, on to next season.